Here to make the case for AI, please welcome Reid Hoffman, co-founder of LinkedIn and Manus AI, with Atlantic staff writer Josh Tyrangiel.
Yes, I apologize. I'm back. Reid, it's great to have you here.
It's great to be here.
So there are many interesting things about Reid Hoffman, but one that I envy is that you're in this sort of position to divide your time and attention into a variety of pursuits. And you've really focused on AI in a general sense for the last, I don't know, 8 years?
Maybe even 10.
Okay.
And my undergraduate major was in AI too, but you know.
Yeah, mine too. But is it fair to say that you've spent a lot of 2025 focusing in a way that you haven't before?
Yes.
And where have you focused?
So one of the things, as you know, with actually a local New Yorker, Siddhartha Mukherjee, the awesome author, celebrated oncology researcher, co-founded a company called Manus AI, which is based here in New York. It's actually one of the things that I will spend a couple of days working at because I'm a co-founder of this. And the basic idea is to use AI to accelerate drug discovery with a particular focus on cancer. But as you're creating a drug discovery factory, it also allows you to get diseases that are significant, but not as kind of the economic model doesn't work for them because they're fewer, they're rare, orphaned, et cetera. And the idea that we brought about for this was that neither the purely typical biological pharma approach will work with a little sprinkle of AI, nor will the only AI work. That you have to reinvent it, kind of fusing the two together. Because there's some places where AI is a huge accelerant and helps you create that factory of understanding targets, possible bindings for those targets, ways of understanding how to test them before you start getting into clinical testing as a way to make that work. And the AI has to be kind of in that process, but also it isn't like just purely simulated. And so it was really funny because the way the company came about is I had this idea about what are the kinds of things that AI could accelerate that most people in Silicon Valley aren't paying attention to. And drug discovery was one of them. And so I called Sid, because we've known each other for a number of time, and I said, hey, I'm coming to New York, I'd like to have dinner with you. And he said, great, and we had dinner, and I was running through all this stuff, and he said, well, I brought cancer drugs to market, right? I'm like, no, I didn't know that. Right, so then and then it becomes the company.
So one thing that I think, we were just talking about quantum, and there's a high degree of pretending when it comes to quantum. I do think there's also a high degree of pretending.
But there's a superposition of pretending.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
There's a degree to which we've all accepted that AI and healthcare are sort of like the Reese's peanut butter cup of hard problems and advanced technology. Can you actually just take a minute and explain why they pair pretty well?
Yeah. So, by the way, there's medical is a whole range, and we can go to any of these things, but there's everything from, one of the things I think we want as a human race, as a society, as urgently as possible, as a 24/7 medical assistant running on every smartphone. That is already, it's essentially doable. Like, if, for example, if you get a serious diagnosis and you don't consult ChatGPT or a frontier model as a second opinion, you're making a mistake. I actually know people's lives who've been saved by that consultation. Not first opinion, second opinion, but still extremely important. So that's at the kind of very front end. There's also, of course, like, for example, if you're doing medical practice and you're not actually, in fact, uploading your case notes and doing a cross-check, second opinion, again, some year that's malpractice, just because what are these things? They have ingested 1 trillion words and have said, I have all this knowledge. We don't have that. I mean, that's part of, that's part of the amplification we get. And then you get into, a whole bunch of other, kind of how do you, kind of operate hospitals, medical care. You can imagine, for example, with a medical assistant, it goes, oh, you should get to the ER right now. You can imagine scheduling and things like, single payer systems like NHS of, as opposed to just, well, you set an appointment and it shows up in 8 weeks. It's the, hey, you talk to the assistant, and the assistant actually, in fact, triages you in, so you get all that to here. Then you get to this stuff that, as a tech entrepreneur and investor, is part of the thing that you can see what's happening with AI is language. And biology, actually, in fact, closely approximates, it's not exactly a language, but there's a lot of language and computation in it. And so the notion, for example, like the typical cancer therapeutic, chemo, is we don't know how to do something specific with the 1 of 1,000 cancers you have. So what we're gonna do is poison you, and we're gonna hope that we kill the cancer before we kill you. And we have this little toxicology window that we're like, let's make sure we don't kill you, but let's try to kill it, and that's what we're trying to do. Well, that's because we haven't crafted the specific molecules that would say your particular kind of cancer. How do we figure out a molecule that will bind to that, only bind to that, so not kill you, right? Kill the cancerous cells, but not kill you. And then that becomes a huge search space problem in language. And so how do you use AI, which is search space in language, to accelerate the understanding of what are the things that would bind that? Because, by the way, it's not part of the binding question for the folks who may not, I've now learned a whole bunch of drug biology. It's not just binding with the specific cell itself, but also what else does it bind with? What else might it kill? And you have to make sure you don't have those negative effects.
Right. So you, as a serial entrepreneur, you sort of launched companies, you've entered different industries. Tell me a little bit about what it's like to enter healthcare. And how is your approach different from big pharma and from interests that have been there for a really long time and are super well capitalized?
Well, so I would say that my normal thing as a kind of Silicon Valley entrepreneur is avoid the regulated industries, because anytime you have this kind of regulation, it slows down innovation, massively increases complexity, makes it more likely you're going to fail as a startup, harder to get financing, a whole bunch of other things. So part of my I wouldn't have ventured into this except with Sid, because Sid knows all that part of the world extremely well. But it's, I have some differential knowledge about AI that could make a difference here, and this makes a difference at a human, like 5-year-olds die from cancer. I mean, it's like, it makes a difference at a humanity scale. So I will navigate all of what looks to me like overly ornate craziness around regulatory industry, how economics flow, how clinical trials work, how all this stuff works. But we will get through that because the outcome is potentially worth it. But that's the...
Okay, what about the competitive set, though?
Oh, and then pharma, yes. So look, all companies learn how to be very professional at the thing they're doing, but tend to be bad at new technological trends. And sometimes those companies themselves, embrace and extend the new technological trends. So, for example, Microsoft's doing very well at AI, but by the way, didn't do so well at mobile, right? So it's like, even on the most elite, most competent tech companies, you don't always hit that curve the right way. Sometimes you do there. Everyone else, the new technology is usually like, they just don't know how to build and embrace. Pharma's the same way. So in terms of their biological science, in terms of their understanding of the kind of the regulatory process, the therapeutic process, world class. AI, don't understand it at all.
So it's sort of hammers and nails.
Yeah.
And is your suspicion, I mean, obviously you're making a bet, is your suspicion that AI is transformative enough that approaching it from the other side will yield gains faster, more furious than they can do?
That is 1,000% the bet, and I'm certain that the bet is true. The question is, can we do it?
Got it. You work very closely with Microsoft, you're on the board, and they are giving you some tools as well?
Oh yeah, so I mean, look,
describe some of those tools and let us know a little bit what may not be on the market now that you might get to use in this fight.
Well, so one of the things that Microsoft has is this kind of Microsoft research, which is a whole bunch of extremely smart people who basically are paid to kind of just do research. And they research on a number of things, including quantum. So there's a quantum program that's come out of Microsoft. And some of that is, by the way, because there's a natural thing between software and now AI and biology, like some of the world's best computational chemists. And like I wasn't even aware that there was a discipline of computational chemistry until we started going down this path. And then Sid's like, well, you know, there's this guy who works at MSR. I'm like, well, we can go meet with MSR. That's very easy, right? And so there's a number of different of the MSR folks have constructed very impressive computational chemistry tools. And it's, again, part of the thing that we're doing with Manus is we're not trying to only say we're going to build all of it ourselves. If someone else has a piece of technology that's really helpful, we're just going to use it, right?
You touched on this a little bit, but I want to project forward. You know, it's 10 years out. Someone's diagnosed with stage 2 lung cancer, which means that it's a tumor of 4 centimeters or less. We know what would happen today. Why don't you just take us step by step? What would happen 10 years from now if you're successful, and how that's different?
Well, my hope would be, especially for something major like lung cancer, that we would have discovered a molecule that for that particular cancer would literally, all you would essentially need to do is get it into your bloodstream and it would bind with the right cells, kill those cells, right, and nothing else. Mm-hmm. And it, you know, obviously the gold standard is, could it be something a pill you swallow? If it's an injection, fine, sure. Right? And if it's an injection that has to be injected in a specific place, you have to go to a clinic, fine. Yep. These are 1,000,000 times better than chemo, right? So, you know, and by the way, of course, if it's still super small, then you might still do a surgery, right? It depends a little bit on what the efficacies are, but like it's kind of the question of where you fit between, you know, on that spectrum. But once you get out of the surgery thing, the idea would be a molecule that essentially solves your cancer.
And you think that's feasible in 10 years, less?
It's certainly feasible in 10 years. I mean, again, can we do it? But it's...
But someone will do it?
Yes.
Okay. So I mentioned you live this kind of portfolio life, which is great. One of the joys of which is you have really spent a lot of time with AI, been an enthusiast. What's changed the most in the last 6 months? Because you've had a lot of pretty strongly held feelings, but this thing is a roller coaster. So where have you shifted in the last 6 months?
Well, I continue to be super positive, as you know, because of super agency and all the rest, and we've talked about that before. I'd say that probably, let's see, the key things to track and updates are, like this year, a bunch of the Chinese efforts have demonstrated that they are actually, in fact, very much in the game. That there's a set of different things that they have. Now, there were a bunch of spurious claims, like, oh, we could train a frontier model for much cheaper than you are, and that's just all fiction. But they're training good models, and there's at least 4 Chinese models that I'm tracking right now as having interesting capabilities and things that you do. That's one. 2 is, it started earlier than this, but it's one of the things that most people, and general audience here, aren't tracking is how AI's reasoning capabilities are improving. And if, for example, speaking to everyone here and online or whatever else, if you haven't tried deep research on ChatGPT or Gemini or Claude or, you know, pick your favorite frontier model, do. And what specifically is to do, like, is you want it's the kind of instruction you would give kind of like a research assistant. Like you'd say, okay, I'd like you to, you know, I'd like to get a detailed analysis of the last 30 years of what advancements have been made in cancer medicine and and I would like to include these particular things, and, you know, and then it will go and compute for, call it 10 minutes, and then come back with something that's pretty amazing. Doesn't mean it's always, doesn't mean there aren't sometimes hallucinations and other things, but it's like stunning how good it is, and it's getting better each time.
Yeah, and I would add, just for people who haven't used it, as a journalist, it is very easy to put in include citations and then fact check those citations. So that the hallucination problem, which is still real, is much less problematic than it was even 6 months ago.
Yeah. But by the way, so the chain of thought thing, the reason I mention it is that reasoning capability is another vector that's increasing improvement every quarter. And so part of the thing that, the journalist cycle, as you know, likes to go, oh my God, it's gonna be everything. Oh my God, it's oversold. Oh my God, it's gonna be everything. Oh my God, it's oversold. It's not actually oversold, right? Because there's vectors for improvement on it. And then the very last one is a way to think about kind of what the future you're gonna be living in is we are all going to, anytime we're solving any serious problem, deploy one or more agents. And what's more, in the creation of software, all of us will be, in some number of years, be creating custom software for the things we want.
Does your optimism extend to the transition in the labor markets?
Long term, yes. Short, medium term, it's massive difficulties with transitions. I anticipate massive difficulties. The reason I say, as you know, cognitive industrial revolution is both the outcome being really, really important, but the transition, the transitions that happen being also quite difficult.
So one of the challenges is actually just measuring where we are in that transition and what's happening. If you were Secretary of Labor, what would you be looking at to get early signals? And if there weren't the right signals, what would you fund or create as a metric that would help us know what's going on?
Well, it's a good question. Tempted to say something snarky about the current administration, but I will pass on that.
Oh no, hold it, because I have other opportunities. Let's just.
So, I guess the thing that I would be looking for is, okay, so you want to take a look at the key place where you will see a lot of different transitions are two forms. One is where will the jobs of replacement be, customer service, et cetera, will be part of that. And then where will the jobs of amplification be, and then what happens in the patterns of amplification. Now, in the first patterns of amplification, that will actually also look like job reduction because as the transition goes and you want people who are doing the amplification. But actually, in fact, I think in a lot of those cases, that will be a temporary effect versus a enduring effect. Because, say for example, you and I are company one and company two, and we are competing with each other, and marketing is one of the things we compete on. Sure, maybe like our current marketing department's at 20 people, could now do that same work with 4 people, but we're competing with each other. And so part of how we got to 20 people right now is because we're still competing with each other and doing it.
Right.
Right. So we'll probably get back to a different set of configuration of 20 people and competing, but that's the kind of the amplification story. And there's a lot of places where it actually has that initial kind of dip, and then figuring out how you configure whether it's product development, because I actually think there's infinite demand for creating new software and product development. So the whole software engineers are going away, I think is literally just silly, right? But customer service, I don't think that the same number of customer service jobs will exist on the other side. And what's more, one of the things that I find is kind of entertaining, and I will get back to your Secretary of Labor question, is kind of entertaining, is one of the things we're seeing is people are calling a human, has a human on the other side, and say, no, put the human on, right? Because they're so frustrated with the human who's trying to follow a script that they think it's a robot.
Yes.
Right. So it's okay, that's part of the reason why I think the very first calls, but that will transform what is customer service experience, because right now it's how do we hire someone for the least possible wage anywhere in the world, have them follow a script and get you off the phone, is essentially the customer service thing. Now, if you're running AI, it's how do I help you? Hey, are you having a good day? Is there anything else? It's fine, right, to do all that stuff. So it'll be a transformed experience, but there will be job stuff. So now on the Secretary of Labor side, it would be, okay, take a look at these two kind of categories of jobs, and then be tracking what current volume, both entry level, Stanford did some really good work here, entry coming in, and current volume is. And then if there are repeated changes going on, think about what kinds of things you want to do to try to help with job transitions. And actually getting a set of kind of good thinking and ideas, because one of the things we know is important for the functioning society. It's okay if jobs changes. Okay if I know there's still horse and buggy drivers here in New York.
Yes, and I still have my footman,
yes.
and he's great.
Yes,
but
right.
yeah.
But not so much anymore.
Yeah. So that really leads into the next question, which is that for better or worse, we currently live in a civilization.
Yes.
And that civilization has different sectors that have to collaborate in order to manage these changes.
Well, you're reminding me of Mahatma Gandhi's quote on Western civilization. It would be a good idea.
It's true.
Yes.
So let's say one day we get one. Where are you on the role of politics in helping with this transition? Do you have any faith in the current political environment? Can we accomplish something as large as transitioning a significant sector of the workforce through this uncertainty?
Well, I think, obviously, I worked pretty hard to try to not have the current administration, and have a whole list of things, whether it's from, insanity around vaccines to, kind of challenges around, like tariffs and volatility and what it does for business markets and prices and everyday living and jobs and all this. We could spend 3 hours just listing all the stuff. Mm-hmm. So that intrinsically makes you less optimistic. Now, that being said, I think that the responsibility for all citizens is to try to make it work. And so, that's part of the reason why I went, okay, this administration doesn't want to hear advice from me. That's fine. I will go build stuff and make it happen. But I think that we are not. Look, if we're having a discussion about whether or not vaccines make sense, mm-hmm. right, or other things where there's extremely clear scientific evidence on these things, it makes it much harder to have faith that other kinds of good, call it intelligent governance, play out well.
Nice. You have.
I omitted all the expletives in that.
Yes. I thought you did a great job there. Yes. The conversation around AI and safety has shifted fairly dramatically, and in large part, you think I'm pivoting off this subject. I'm not. In part because we now understand the power of authoritarian regimes and AI. Yes. So let me ask you a bit of a hypothetical that I hope we don't have as a practical. In what ways can an authoritarian government use AI currently exists in the marketplace, to increase its control over society, and how would we know that they're using it?
The second part is a little bit more challenging. Although part of the question, okay, so the first one is, it's already happening. It's happening in China. There is a bunch of things in terms of Uyghurs and other things that it's already happening. That I've years back, not within the 10-year window, but an investor friend of mine went to a company in Beijing and for an investor pitch, and they showed him, here's everywhere you've been in Beijing, because they had all the footage, and he's like, okay, thanks, I'm leaving now. And so that's there's a number of different things that could easily be done now and are being done in some places. Now, tracking that it is happening, I think is probably mostly a function of well-ordered societies, which we're having some trouble with right now. There's on the most cutting edge, you have to be working with the companies, and one of the things that the companies are good at is they have alternative, like they have a board of directors and they have shareholders and they have a bunch of other things, and most of those companies, are pretty explicit about we refuse to have our technology used for mass surveillance of citizens. Right, and
so far.
Yes.
Okay, we're going to end it on a slightly more optimistic note. You are famously networked. This is a networking event of some kind. I'm curious, what conversation have you had over the last year or so that's just completely blown your mind, Change the way you think about the world?
Well, probably the good news is I probably encounter those reasonably often. That's the one of the things I love about, the kind of place where I end up. But maybe this would be the kind of, because it's something like I know really well, but I still learn something really amazing. So I was sitting with Ethan Mullick at Wharton, who is like one of the great, kind of leading thinkers and follow his streams and so forth. And he was like, oh, people are undercutting. They don't understand all the stuff that you can already do with multimodal AI. And I was like, sure, I think I know everything. Tell me what you're thinking. And he said, well, one of the big problems in construction projects is it's very hard to know if you're on track, if there's a long pole tent, if there's something you can do to try to accelerate it, and all the rest. And so you have inspectors go by, but the inspectors are like one time slice and very expensive to do, and are kind of managed and all the rest. So what he did is, on a construction project, he set up 24 cameras. He loaded into the AI the construction plan, and they asked the AI to do a report at each day where the construction was, because it was reading in multimodal for the cameras and got a detailed, and this is like a guy who's not even really a coder, got a detailed, here's the things that are working well, here's the things that are at risk, here's the things that are falling behind, here's the things you would need to do in order to try to stay on schedule, et cetera.
Wow. And at the end, his contractor was still like, you can have it fast, you can have it cheap.
Yes, exactly.
Cool, AI.
Yes.
All right, Reid, always a pleasure. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks.